It's actually embarrassing to say how far behind we are in women's health, especially hormonal health. We're a decade behind men's, and we're a decade even further behind transgender health. So we've made more progress with transgender population than we have with women over the age of 30. Doctors are not trained in medical school at all about hormonal health, and even doctors think that birth control is hormones. We need to be questioning that. Is this healthy? Like, our hormones are built to protect us. They tell every process how to function. So if you take that away, then you're potentially increasing health risks for a young patient, especially 13-year-olds or 15-year-olds long term. When women in their 30s are like doing all the supplements, all the things to try to stop this aging because they can feel it. But if they knew that, hey, you can prevent this and you can slow this down a lot just by using your own natural hormones, wouldn't that be great if you could prevent wrinkles and hair loss and weight gain? We used to tell women, like, you got to go through menopause. And we would even sometimes take away their hormones, which is unbelievably cruel. We don't believe in that philosophy anymore. All the data shows that you don't have to ever go through menopause if you don't want to. This is entirely your choice. There's only one difference between perimenopause and menopause. They have exactly the same symptoms. The only difference is...
Welcome back to the Healing and Human Potential podcast, where today we're going to talk about how birth control might be affecting your bodies in ways that you're not even expecting. We're joined by Dr. Sarah Daccarett to dive into all of these topics. And so if you're ready to understand your hormones, connect with your body, and take actionable steps towards living a more vibrant, healthy life, this episode is for you. Amazing. I'm so happy that you're here. And I'm just going to dive right in because there's so many questions I want to ask you. I'm curious because I know hormone health can be like a mystery for a lot of women. And so I'm curious just to hear your opinion, why there's a lack of research and understanding about women's health and how that actually affects the care that we get in the long term.
It's true. It's actually embarrassing to say how far behind we are in women's health, especially hormonal health. We're a decade behind men's, and we're a decade even further behind transgender health. So we've made more progress with transgender population than we have with women over the age of 30, for example, for hormone, even in innovation, approach, reference intervals, everything. And there's always, it's actually not that surprising, I guess. We have a huge gender data gap with everything. And men, in medicine, all of the studies have been geared towards men. Women have cycles, and so our hormones fluctuate, and potentially they complicated studies or drug studies, pharmaceuticals, the dosings built for men. I mean, even iPhones, like the size of an iPhone, is built for a man's hand. I mean, like car seats, everything. I mean, everything is, we are literally half of the population and completely ignored when it comes to even technological advancements. So it's happened in hormonal health as well.
Yeah. And it's good for us to know that so that when we're hearing different research and studies, we can actually apply, does that actually true for me? Does this feel right for my body? Right. So that, I heard somewhere, I don't know if this is accurate, that men's hormones are within a 24-hour window and women's are more through the month. Is that accurate?
It's probably accurate. I think some of them stay stable. When we look at these old cyclical graphs, they're based on very old lab assays, outdated, in fact. We'll reject other research papers if they're done on these lab tests, but we still acknowledge this old data. So we can even question whether that's accurate or not, or whether that needs to be reinvestigated.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a huge opportunity.
There's a misbelief or misunderstanding about even a period. Women think that they have a period because they've ovulated or dropped an egg, and this is not necessarily true. Women will have, because we tell women that they can't take hormone replacement therapy. We've been telling them for a long time, well, if you're still having a period, you're still making hormones. And this is totally wrong, right? Women have this misunderstanding that they've made progesterone because they had a period. And we see women with 0 levels of hormones and still having a period. So there's something else there, a different mechanism that's cyclical, that's causing a period that's not hormone related, that we don't understand, that we have not even researched that basic thing about women.
That's crazy. It feels like that would be the foundation to get started on hormone research. Yeah. And I know that doctors oftentimes will prescribe birth control for various types of reasons without really talking about the long-term implications of what that does to your hormones. I mean, I got put on birth control because I had cramps at 13. And there's a lot that does. I'm just curious to hear why you think this is so common. And then what are some of the hidden risks for us doing that?
Yeah, this is something that we're not informing young patients. This is, like you said, birth control is prescribed for acne, bad periods. It's meant for a specific reason. And for that, it's good, right? Birth control. But like, it's not a treatment. It's not a treatment for endometriosis or PCOS or acne or anything like that. And what I think the reason is doctors are not trained in medical school at all about hormonal health. And even doctors think that birth control is hormones. I hear it a lot. So women, if they could understand anything from today, like if I wanted, if they can understand that birth control is the opposite, it suppresses the production of your hormone. That's what makes you infertile. It stops the production of your own estrogen and progesterone. And we need to be questioning that. Like, women need to, like, for their daughters, and they need to be like, is this healthy? Like, our hormones are built to protect us from a lot of different things. They tell every process how to function. So if you take that away, then you're potentially increasing health risks for a young patient, especially 13-year-olds or 15-year-olds long term. How do we know how that impacts your fertility? How do we know how that impacts your mental health? As soon as young women especially, start birth control, we see an increase in suicidal ideation, right? Like, there could become depression. There's depression, anxiety, irritability. They can't sleep. Mental health is huge. Like, why are, and you're increasing the risk with birth control. There's certainly a better way to treat acne.
Yeah. And it makes sense. Like, anything that's natural, there's an intelligence in nature. And so when we're just pushing it down so we can skip a period or to help our acne, like you're saying, there's other options for people. I know that there's so much infertility. Talk to us about infertility and why you think there's so much going on right now, or what the current research says about it.
It's wild how much there is. And I think that when we look at men, we know that their testosterone levels, for example, are 50% lower. There's some statistics about how much lower they are now than they were even 100 years ago. The same thing is for women. I think women need to recognize that their estrogen and progesterone levels are very, very low, and it's making them infertile. What's causing that in a 25-year-olds? I think in a 30 and above, our ancestors were probably not ever meant to live that long. So we weren't really meant to have babies, maybe past 30. And so that might be aging. That just might be biological, that our ovaries are failing us. But when you have a 22-year-old or 23 or 25, where we're seeing really young women with low hormone levels, what's causing this? And it's likely environmental. I mean, you can speculate all the plastics and the toxins, and there's phthalates. I mean, women are inundated with beauty products that have fragrances in them, chemicals, like they're putting them on their skin, they're all over their body, for example. And then the food. But I think largely it's just like the chemicals around us that they can't avoid. No matter how much they try to eliminate these toxins, they're everywhere. And we're even breathing in plastics, apparently, microplastics now. It's in my tea now, I've heard. So it's like everywhere. And I think that if women understood what actually maybe protected them against these plastics, and I can get into this really quickly.
Yeah, I would love to hear.
Okay. Because like, people say that these plastics and phthalates bind to estrogen receptors, right? And they're causing like something like an estrogen dominance, or they're giving women symptoms. But why are these receptors free in the first place? So if you think about it, estrogen, this is a beautiful receptor that's completely empty because she has low estrogen and progesterone to begin with. And now you've allowed these plastics and phthalates and chemicals to bind to this open receptor, and it's causing problems, and it could potentially cause cancer. We think that it might cause breast cancer and other problems for her, and inflammation in the body. So if they were just to keep their estrogen and progesterone levels healthy, then the receptors would be full, right? You'd be protecting yourself because there would be nowhere for these plastics to bind or chemicals to bind, because the receptors are full of our very own protective natural estrogen and progesterone, which they are built to protect us. If you think about pregnancy, this like state that women are like the most amazing creatures are able to do, literally, like on the planet, is like have a baby, be able to have a baby, birth it, and then heal from that and recover from it. Estrogen and progesterone do this they are our nature's way of protecting the body and allowing it to heal. So when they're missing, we get disease, we get autoimmunity, we get a lot of unhealthy states.
How do we support our hormones?
So this is really hard. And with all these environmental toxins, like see women who are really trying their best. They're eliminating all the toxins. Their diets are super clean. Like they have these pristine, like the way they're doing it, they're doing everything. And they're still struggling with their gut health. And when you start to see the gut health decline and they start to get autoimmunity, they start to get Hashimoto's, their skin doesn't look as good and their hair. And this is because they don't have their hormones there to regulate their immune system, to help with their gut health, all the, weight maintenance, everything that it's supposed to be doing. But I guess there's good news.
Yeah.
is that what is wrong with simply replacing these hormones? We can actually supplement them like we would supplement anything else that we're missing or no longer able to make. So I think if women knew that, hey, you could still, like, it's still good to eliminate all the toxins and have the clean diet, but if you're still struggling, you can protect yourself actually just by replacing the hormones. And there's some ways that are better to do that than others, but making sure that these levels, sometimes you cannot do it on your own. Like you can't do it with like the will, all this willpower.
Yeah. So it sounds like, because I imagine there's lifestyle things that people can do. Maybe you can share some. I also imagine there's some herbs, but I also know for other people that might need more support. Can you kind of list off a few practical things that people, just so that they can see their options?
Yes. I think in a younger patient, call a younger patient 20 to 30. And I know that women in their 30s, I'm still young, we're in our 40s, but there's a certain point where the ovaries cannot function as well, even in the place of an herb. So for example, if you're a younger woman and you're struggling and you're able to remove all these toxins and you're able to reduce your stress. So, if you're able to do this and practice exercise and all of the things like yoga, meditate, anything you need to do to like be centered and reduce that stress will help. And then diet, especially eliminating like gluten and dairy and eating, protein and like things that can work. And then some herbs work. So here's the thing, like the herbs are not natural actually. I think we think of an herb as a natural plant, but we don't naturally make ashwagandha. We don't make turmeric. We don't make black cohosh. That's not something my body makes. And when we take those herbs, they bind to those receptors and they don't actually act like the natural hormone. Sometimes they raise serotonin and dopamine, or they just raise serotonin and they make women sometimes feel better, like they kind of get a boost. But this is not like the most beneficial thing you can do. You need the hormone. We naturally make estrogen and progesterone. That's what we should be supplementing, right? So then what we're trying to do with the herb in a younger patient, and I have done it and it sort of works. Like if you have a healthy patient, it can stimulate ovulation, right? It can make sure that you're normalizing LH and FSH in the brain. And that's how it'll work for her. And we can get a better result in men. So I would say that men actually have a little bit easier. A lot of the herbs work better to raise testosterone than they do for women. I know Vitex is a popular, like chasteberry for progesterone, but I find that it's not as effective as you might want it to be, but it can be helpful. And then beyond that though, I find that if you try herbs in older women, you have less and less an effect because the ovaries cannot function the way you want them to, even with the stimulant, if you're trying to stimulate it.
Yeah. And it's good just to see what our options are so that we can think about and just test things. What actually works for me? Why not try the different things and maybe start with some mindfulness or having less stress and seeing how the body can find its own homeostasis?
I think that you still need all of that. There's no getting around all that either. Yeah. Right. And so to be this ultimate health that we want to be in and expand our lifespan, but not only our lifespan, but our health span. Women already live longer than men. We really want to be healthy, as long as we can, and vibrant and youthful and feel good and chase our kids and all the things. And so I think hormone replacement there, in my opinion, replacing, estrogen and progesterone is just foundational. It's like brushing your teeth. It's keep maintaining and keeping my health. And then on top of that, I still need to have the clean diet. I still need to eliminate the toxins. I still need to do the mindfulness. I still need to do the exercise. I still need to do everything else.
And you get to do it because life is so much better when we are more centered and healthier and happier. And that's so much of what this podcast is about. And so we won't go too much into that, but that's I'm such a fan of that as being the foundation because everything else is better when we are healthier and vibrant from the inside out. Imagine having a fulfilling career doing what you love, working from anywhere in the world, setting your own hours while making good money and a big impact. If that lights you up, then I'm super excited to share with you today's sponsor, the Institute for Coaching Mastery. This is my robust, accredited year-long certification program for newer seasoned coaches, therapists, leaders, and those just looking to up-level their life in a profound way. We have an amazing community of students from all around the world who have really started their journey to expand with us both personally and professionally. And this experience is designed to give you the 3 things that you need to thrive. So first, you have all of the tools and support you need to move past what's been holding you back so that you can completely change the trajectory of your life. And then you learn how to masterfully and confidently facilitate transformation with your clients or your team, regardless of your niche. If you want to do health, business, relationship, or you just have no idea yet, we hold your hand through that. And then lastly, you'll receive my 6-figure and beyond signature roadmap that's customizable to meet you wherever you are. So whether you want to do high ticket sales, online marketing, or you just want to hit 6 figures without ever needing to go on social media, we've got you covered. And this truly is the most rewarding work in the world. We have new students now who have a waitlist of dream clients in under a year. We also have seasoned students who are doing $80,000 months. And this is really about creating lasting transformation from the inside out so that you can share your gifts and serve the world in all the ways that you're called to. And I've seen firsthand the power of what happens when you have the community to collaborate with, but you also have the right tools and resources to really thrive. And so whether you want to do your own personal development, you're wanting to become a coach, or you're just looking for a cutting edge approach to really grow your business, the Institute for Coaching Mastery is for you. You are held every single step of the way. And so if you want to get behind the scenes access to the Institute with 3 proven transformational tools for free to help you create the business and life you love, all you have to do is go to alyssanobriga.com/tools, or you can find us at alyssanobriga.com/apply now to see all the details and apply today. Let's talk about progesterone a little bit, because I know this also plays a crucial role in our health and it's oftentimes overlooked. What is the connection between progesterone and various health concerns? And then how do we even know when our progesterone is low?
There's some confusion as what I think progesterone's completely ignored. Like we talk so much about estrogen and its role in breast cancer or whatever. And then like progesterone is our main hormone, actually. It is the one that's highest. And when we talk about hormones in women, yeah, we can talk about the absolute level, but the ratio is really important. So women need to have progesterone levels that are much, much higher than the estrogen or testosterone, or they have problems. So it's when the progesterone gets really low and they're still making a little bit of estrogen and testosterone that they start to get a lot of symptoms and they start to see things. So how can you tell if your progesterone's low? The main symptoms can be anxiety, depression, insomnia, really a lot of mood instability. So like women, like progesterone is a calming hormone that keeps us calm and centered. It helps us tolerate men and small children. And when it's low, we literally cannot tolerate people around us. And like we can tell that I just don't feel like, and I have no reason to be upset at my, very amazing husband, but he's like, even breathing is driving me crazy. And this is something that, you're in, and even with somebody who's practicing mindful practices and all the things, and they don't feel centered, they still need their progesterone to help with that. And can you imagine? That's the main thing that happens. But beyond that, you will see a lot of diseases like endometriosis, PCOS, autoimmunity, Hashimoto's. So the immune system, like if you think about, again, I keep relating it to pregnancy because women, everyone else can relate, right? And we know about the state of pregnancy. It's our immune system is really complicated, more so than we are really actually different than men. We're actually practically a different species. And our immune system is entirely different. And it has to be so that we can carry a baby and not kill the baby. Like our immune system does not attack the baby, even though it's a foreign object that we're literally carrying for almost 10 months. So our immune system does not recognize that, and it's modulated and it's kept like in check. But it still has to be high because we still have to protect ourselves from infection while pregnant. So we have this really beautiful, like complex immune system. If you think about how amazing that is, it's modulated by estrogen and progesterone. And when you're not pregnant and you don't have any hormones around, this immune system just becomes chaotic. So there's nothing to boost it and keep it in check. And that's where you see women have like astronomically higher levels, more autoimmunity than men. Like men don't have autoimmunity.
It's like 80% more are women. Yeah.
Yes. And so it's because we need progesterone in order to stop that and prevent that autoimmunity. And so if you have an autoimmunity, like Hashimoto's, nobody told you your progesterone's low, right? And it's probably what happened first. Your progesterone drops off and then you develop the autoimmunity later. Everybody kind of addresses the autoimmunity, right? With diet and like all the things that you can do, but they're not addressing the underlying root cause. And then we see endometriosis, like in really young women. Like, so for example, which is probably an autoimmunity. It's an inflammatory state of the body. They get pain everywhere. It's not just like I'm cramping. These lesions are formed from inflammation in the body. And this is because the immune system's like wreaking havoc. We see, so this, I think the immune system really, something that you wouldn't even tie to low progesterone, but is so common.
So what I keep hearing you sharing is like, get your hormones in balance and it will support. And I also know when you test your hormones, it takes a minute to get those back, right? So what are some of the practical things that women can do to check how their hormones are doing and just get feedback?
The unfortunate thing about where we're at with women's health at the moment is that laboratory testing is contributing to the confusion that women are already facing and the lack of help that they already have. So even if I tell everybody, go get your hormones checked, like they will, and then they'll get the results back and they'll be quote unquote normal.
Oh, normal. Okay.
Because labs do not flag. Nobody has established optimal reference ranges for progesterone. There are 5 papers literally in the entire world. 5. There are like 1,000 on testosterone, just to give you a comparison. Okay, so like everybody on the call can be like really upset that this it's just outreach, like the lab community. It's embarrassing. Mm-hmm. So even if the labs do not flag a low progesterone and doctors do not look at it, they're like, oh, well, this must just be normal. The only one that's flagged is a low testosterone, because testosterone is the only one that's been established the optimal reference range, and it's not our main hormone. And so this is hard, but you get your own labs and then be informed. So you can get labs, and if it's below, say 6, which is 6,000 picograms per milliliter. So if it's number 6 or below, then it's low, and I think that might help women because it's usually like 0.5 or 0.2 or 0 or non-existent. Right. And so if they knew themselves to not listen to their doctor or the lab tests and they were fully informed, that might help. But other than that, like their body, like women generally know, they're like, I'm healthier now than I was like 5 years ago. I don't feel like no matter what I do, I'm doing everything and I still can't get the results that I should be getting. I'm working out like crazy. I'm eating all the right things and I don't like the way I look in the mirror no matter what I do, or even just the way I feel about myself. They know. Like every woman I've ever talked to has been like, something's off.
And I love that you are empowering clients to know their body and their truth. Because I've been to doctors, Western medicine, where it's like, your thyroid, you're fine. I'm like, I'm telling you, I'm not fine. They're like, no, you're fine. I'm like, no, you're not listening to me. So I found a new doctor, but it's good. It feels empowering to know that there's different measurements for men and women, and to trust your body and to know that you have alternative options to test things to find out what actually is true and how to help yourself.
And it's also inappropriate for any doctor to put you into a reference range, or like to try to stick your like thyroid, which it's your body, into like a reference range, or with all these other, based on 50 other people, because the reference ranges are only like estradiol is only based on 49 women and 100 men. Like that means that you're being compared to 100 men and only 49 women, and they're telling you that you're normal. So it's like, well, how I know those 49 women are normal, or even what I want to look like or be like. And so it's your body, it's like, we should be so individualized that I really encourage women, even when we do treatment, I would rather you tell me that you're feeling great, and I will never chase a lab test. I would, because if it's normal, the lab test is normal, but you're sitting here telling me that you're not normal, then we have a problem.
That's right. Thank you for listening to your patients and empowering people, because sometimes people abdicate their authority and they give it to the expert, the doctor. It's like, no, this is your body. You're more in touch than anyone else. Okay. I also want to talk about perimenopause and menopause, because I consider myself an incredibly healthy person. I have no idea the symptoms or when I am going to be approaching perimenopause or when I'm in menopause. Like, talk to us a little bit about this so we're on the same page and more informed.
Yes. We've overcomplicated this for women.
Okay.
Let's just say, like, we don't use words like andropause for men or different phases of life for men. And women, I guess, have been tied to the start and the end of their period because it's such a visible thing, right? Like, so yeah, we were excluded from the hut, like when we were like our ancestors. So this is something that we could move away from potentially, but we since we're using the word perimenopause and menopause so much in the media, let's use it. But like, there's only one difference between perimenopause and menopause. They have exactly the same symptoms. The only difference is menopause, the period has stopped for a full year.
Oh, okay.
So menopause by definition is your period has stopped. Perimenopause is like the whole 20 years before that period stops. And if women knew that the last thing to happen was the period stopping, and they should not wait, because it is like you have waited almost too long. And if they wait for a hot flash means your estrogen's below 100. I just like want women to understand how devastating this, like you've not experienced a hot flash but like they feel this sense of like impending doom. This is not just sweating at night. This is really like, and they have them multiple times. And the hypothalamus is what regulates our body temperature. It literally makes us different than like a snake or a reptile. We can regulate, and makes us warm-blooded animals. And so when it needs estrogen to function, and when estrogen's gone, you can no longer regulate your own body temperature. It's not a way to live. It's as your quality of life goes way down. And that's in addition to like all the other things like your vaginal and pelvic health, urinary incontinence, like all the things that come with it. So I don't want like, usually we associate hot flashes and the lack of period with menopause, and then perimenopause, any other symptom. And there are 100 symptoms. Well, and hormones are needed for everything. But I would say that the most common that I see first is like a lack of centeredness. Like they feel like they're losing it, and they can't, no matter what they do, they cannot feel calm. They have anxiety, depression that they didn't have before, irritability, and they can't sleep. And these are the things that start to disrupt their life. And then the brain fog, lack of energy. I'm not getting results at the gym. I'm gaining weight. I'm getting wrinkles. My hair is falling out.
All the good things.
Everything that we associate with aging.
Period.
Right?
Yeah.
So we're seeing like, hey, this is actually just me getting older. And I think women just associate it with something that they have to do, or they have to buy another product to prevent aging. You don't have to like age so quickly. Like, so this drop off in hormones after the age of 30 is generally when it happens. Like women after the age of 30 start going through perimenopause. And so we tell women it's like 50. So like, when women in their 30s are like doing all the supplements, all the things to try to stop this aging because they can feel it. But if they knew that, hey, this is actually, you can prevent this and you can slow this down a lot just by using your own natural hormones. Wouldn't that be great if you could prevent wrinkles and hair loss and weight gain?
And slow down that process. So what I hear you saying is that by using natural hormones can help make that transition smoother.
I'm saying there can be no transition. You do not have to. That transition is optional. So like we used to tell women, like, you got to go through menopause or whatever. And we would even sometimes take away their hormones. Like, okay, now it's time to be like menopausal, which is unbelievably cruel. And we don't believe in that philosophy anymore. All the data shows that you don't have to ever go through menopause if you don't want to. This is entirely your choice. And so you don't have to do this transition. You can maintain your period. If you want to maintain your period, we'll help you do that. And when I talk about aging, I'm talking about deterioration of the body. Mitochondrial function, right? Estrogen and progesterone boost mitochondrial function. We're talking about bone health, heart health, muscular health, like everything that we need in order to prevent like bone fractures as we get older. Like it's like endless how we can prevent disease. And we just want to slow that down, right? I just want to push that off as long as I possibly can and feel great in 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, right? And 80s too, right? So this is what we're talking about. No transition.
Okay. But you'll still obviously stop your period. You'll still get what?
Because the period. So this is like, I love it because women don't know. And I wish like this, again, it's like, this is great. We should talk about this. Like women think the period is directly linked to this ovulation. And so, no, I'd be like a billionaire if I could make 50-year-olds ovulate again, right? With like hormone replacement therapy. It doesn't make you fertile, but it makes that you're still going to have some shedding of the lining forever, potentially, because we're stimulating and keeping that uterine lining healthy, just like we're causing a cellular turnover. So like, I'm sure you've heard of retin A and like the stuff we put on our skin, right? To cause this turnover of cells. So estrogen actually functions that way. That's where they got the idea of retin A, right? Estrogen causes this turnover and keeps the skin like really bright, preventing age spots and all the things. So we want to keep this cellular turnover going, and it's doing estrogen and progesterone are doing that with the uterus. So you're always stimulating and turning it over and keeping that really healthy and intact. And so my clients that are, long story short, postmenopausal, they're in their they've been on treatment for many years in their 60s, and they'll still have some type of shedding of the lining of the uterus once or twice a year, even though it's not a period, right? They're ovulating. But you still have some bleeding. And I think some women choose to keep a 28-day cycle for as long as they can. And I encourage that because it's like you're keeping that period's like a sign of youth. So they want to keep that until well into their almost 60 potentially.
I did not think you were going there. I had no idea that that was even a possibility. Isn't
that exciting though?
That's exciting. Yes.
You should be like thrilled that this is not like, we do not have, it's totally optional. We don't have to have symptoms. We can feel amazing and great. And it, we have self-driving cars like on the street, literally. Like women can feel and they deserve it. They can feel great and look great for as long as they want, right? So
wow. I just wasn't expecting that. I love that you went there. Okay. That's good. And yes, I want to feel vibrant and healthy as long as I am alive. And so why not look into different options and find, I guess, testing what is the right dose for you and where are you low and high, and probably continuously checking in on that to monitor it, I imagine, right?
You can. I think it's like an internal check once you get your balanced. So the trick is like making it personalized, not necessarily a lab test. Like, again, you're kind of like checking in, but it's more of like a self-check. I guess I should say the difference between you and I, for example, or like another woman, would be how you and I metabolize the hormones differently. Or let's say like I might make more testosterone than you or something like that. Or another woman might tend to, because we convert progesterone into testosterone, women do. And this can be problematic because sometimes testosterone has side effects like acne, hair loss, bloating, weight gain, right? It can make us irritable and things that we don't really want necessarily.
I'm laughing because I took a testosterone at one point and I broke out like a teenager and I was so agitated and so turned on. I was like, my husband's like, thank you. What? I'm confused. I was like, that was a little too much for me.
I actually hear that a lot. Like, I don't know if I want that teenage boy. Like,
yeah, I felt so much compassion for teenage boys. I was like, wow. Okay. It was a humbling experience. Yeah.
I think what we want, like, so we get our natural receptivity and libido from estrogen. I think it's interesting that we know that estrogen binds to the same receptors as MDMA, for example, and it allows that openness and receptivity that we need in order for libido to happen. And so it's not just like women are more complicated again. I don't just need a little, like, I'm not a small man. I don't need a small dose of testosterone to get my libido. I'm a little bit more complicated. I'm going to need estrogen, progesterone, all the other things in place. But like when you're trying to personalize HRT, like hormone replacement therapy, I will first see how you metabolize your hormones and to see what your body does. And then we can use things to like adjust. Like if you're making too much testosterone, there's a lot of Chinese herbs and like green tea, for example, matcha tea. It's one of the most amazing things for women. It's like one of my most favorite things. So like everybody could do matcha green tea. They would, and that is how we can kind of keep testosterone in check a little bit, for example. So that's how you can make it more personal. Like, what am I doing? And sometimes the foods that we eat or the diet that we maintain or exercise level will alter these fluctuations in hormones, and we have control over that.
Yeah. And I think it's good that you just keep inviting people to listen to their body and test different things out. And I know that we were talking about sexuality and that obviously hormones can affect our libido and our sexual health, and that, sexual shame can also be a big part of our culture, especially for women. And so in terms of your work with women, what have you seen support their healing journey physically, emotionally around sexuality?
Women sometimes come into my office and that's what their concern is, that their relationship is in jeopardy because they don't want to be intimate with their husband anymore. It's like sex can be painful, but even before then, they don't feel like it or they're irritated by their husband. And we've completely normalized erectile dysfunction for men over the last decade. We'll talk about it. So you can get Viagra like anywhere online. It's just like a normal thing over a certain age, like even young men. And we didn't used to talk about it like we do now. And I think that we need to normalize vaginal dryness, for example, for women, just like we normalize erectile dysfunction for men. Like, hey, this is actually really common. And if you have like vaginal dryness or you have vaginal odor or, like we link erection, and I hope I'm not getting, but this is interesting. If women understand this, erections to libido in men we need to associate vaginal, like a kind of a lubrication state for women and libido, right? That is our equivalent. And so we don't teach 13-year-old girls this. We don't teach young women this. Like if we were to start talking to our daughters a little bit differently about this, like I have a young son, and when they get just erections, as they're growing, and I'm like, this is normal body function. This is blood flow. This is keeping this area healthy for you. You don't have control over this. This is normal. If we talk to our daughters the same way, then they would think that that's a normal, like having vaginal, that state of vaginal health is normal. When I start older women on like hormone replacement therapy, and they start to feel like a 13-year-old girl again, which they tell me I feel like a 13-year-old girl again, and I'm like having to use a liner, and there's a lot of, there's a lot of changes in like discharge. They call it discharge, and I'm like, this is what it's supposed to be like, and it's okay. This is normal, but we don't associate it with like a good thing, right? Like, does that make sense? Like men will be like, yeah, we need to start talking about this in a normal way. Like, hey, this is total normal body function. And it will show that this is really important for women. Like this prevents infections. Like if you have an appropriate vaginal health and a microbiome, appropriate pH, you'll prevent urinary tract infections, yeast infections, urinary incontinence. Your pelvic health will thank you. You'll feel better. Your intimate relationships will be better, right? It'll be better for you. And so this is a huge part of pelvic health is a huge part of women's health.
Yeah. And I love that you're just normalizing and bringing this up so there's less shame about it. I think shame happens when there's secrecy. And so just talking about it, like this is healthy, this is normal, all of it is normal. And it may just be feedback that your body's giving you to look into something. And so I love that it's just brought out into the open. And I also know that women in society typically are taught to put others' needs in front of their own. And it can be revolutionary to move from shame to honoring their own pleasure. I'm just curious, what advice would you have to give women around learning to prioritize their own sexual satisfaction?
We should do it. We prioritize men's sexual health, and so does society and everything else. And so we need to start looking at, like for example, this vaginal dryness or something as a health concern. We don't do that now. We think it might be a relationship concern, or maybe I need to use more lube, or maybe I need to read a sexy novel, or I need to like date my husband or get into it. No, we deserve to have like this just as much as men. And I think the more that we just realize that we do deserve it and we need to prioritize it, and we're not doing that now. Like I would say that like the vast majority of women I talk to, they almost want to do it so they can make their husbands happy, because they want to save that obviously they want to save their relationship and they love their spouse. But it's never about sex at first until they really start to feel better, and then it's like great, and that it should be like that. Like they should be coming to my office asking for that first, just like men come into my office asking for erectile dysfunction medication, right? Women should be like, there's something wrong down there. This is like not right, and we need to fix this right away, even before they start to get other symptoms. And so I wish that women knew that they absolutely deserve it.
Yeah. And get to prioritize our pleasure. And as we're in pleasure, our partner, whatever gender, they're going to be turned on by our pleasure. And so us taking care of ourselves, it's just this ripple effect in the world.
I talk to men, like husbands, and they're like, oh, so I describe what I do for a living or whatever. And they're like, oh, so you basically it's a product for men. I was like, that's such a man thing to say.
Yeah,
but,
totally.
but I was like, I guess so. But women, I really like that we're talking about it more, and when women are kind of taking it into realizing that it should be a priority for them.
And I'm just curious in closing, I know you have a son, but if you were to have a daughter who's going through puberty, based on current research, what would you share with her? What would you want her to know about her body and taking care of her health and hormones?
It would be priority. Since I am like a total geek and I know about epigenetics, for example, I would make sure that she was tested so that I could know how fast she was metabolizing hormones, because that could impact her mental health. Like as she was a teenager, I would always ensure that like her hormone levels were optimal. I would never put her on birth control. Like I would teach her we'd potentially talk about other ways. I think that more natural ways that you're not suppressing hormone production, because knowing how protective hormones are and how devastating it can be on a mental health. I would say that over 90% of women experience mental health issues when they go on birth control. And I would probably test her right? So I'd make sure that she was always, and I would think of that first, like if she was having some type of crisis or low energy or not function, like, I would just make sure that at least biologically that was okay. In addition to all the other things that you're trying to teach them, right? All the tools, all the skill sets that you want to teach them, I would just at least make sure that she was healthy. And a lot of that's diet, exercise, like at that young age, making sure that you don't have those toxins around like a young individual, like around a young body.
Yeah, like reading the ingredients in products and food. And obviously there's toxins that we can't control, but just to really take care as much as we can.
And then, of course, I would talk to her about sexual health, like completely normalizing this. So at least she didn't have like shame around it. Like, I never talked about it with my mother. I don't know. Like a lot of my friends talk to them about, not once did it come up.
Nobody told me to pee after sex. I mean, like there was like some basic things some people could have told me. I didn't learn any of it. I learned a lot from HBO.
Exactly. And I think that, I heard this saying that if you don't teach your kids about sex, somebody else will. And I think that, teaching that even women how to pleasure, if you teach your daughter, like talk to her about learning how to pleasure herself so that when she does find a partner, it's not like a mystery and then she can ask for what she wants. And it establishes this like more of a, hey, I'm priority here in the relationship. And that can even carry over into other parts of her relationship. And I think that's powerful. And we don't teach girls that. It's like, it's all just figure it out.
I agree. My oldest, when she was 18, we read the book Pussy by Regina Thomasschauer, who's a dear friend of mine. And it was so beautiful to share that experience with her and to talk about it and to help. And so I love what you stand for. I love that you are such a voice for women's health and to really listen to our bodies and look at the research. And I know that there are people that are going to want to stay connected and hear what you're up to. Can you share with us where they can do that?
So right now I'm online treating women with hormone replacement therapy with a natural bioidentical estrogen progesterone. And we raise testosterone too a little bit with that. And I'm in 40 states. So we make it really easy. Like I'll meet with you after you get started. You fill out intake forms online and you can just get started right away. And I work with you over 6 months to make sure that you are balanced, like I talk about. So easy, like no barriers, no gatekeeping, no lab tests. Like if you want to try it, we don't, just can try it and see if you like it.
Okay, great. Well, we'll put your website in the show notes here below so people have that easily accessible to them. Thank you for coming on, for sharing your wisdom. Enjoy Hawaii. I love that you met us while you were there.
Yeah, of course. I wouldn't miss it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for doing this work that changes the world, starting with yourself. It truly does make a difference. And if you're finding value in this podcast, a cost-free way to support us is by leaving an up to 5-star review. It does mean the world to us. And as a thank you gift, we're going to send you one of the most powerful tools that you will ever discover. You're going to get behind the scenes access showing you how to live into your full potential without letting fear hold you back from stepping into your dreams. Just head over to Apple Podcast or Spotify and leave a review now. You can take a screenshot before hitting submit and then go to alyssanobriga.com/podcast to upload it. And make sure to have your automatic downloads turned on wherever you listen so you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes. I have so much magic I can't wait to share with you. And you can find all this information in the show notes below. But lastly, if you're on Instagram, I love connecting and hearing from you. So come on over and say hello. I'm at Alyssa Nobriga. Thank you again for being here. I cannot wait to share more with you.